Full time at Turf Moor, and it's finished Burnley 0, Liverpool 1 for the Reds' fourth win in a row, and ensures they keep the pressure up on Premier League leaders Manchester City in the title race. Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the Debrief Live on the Blood Red channel with myself, Patrick Smith, and Theo Squires. How are you doing?
I'm very cold, mate. It's very cold. It's very windy. Stoke City might not be in the Premier League anymore, so this could be their successor. Cold, wet, windy day in Burnley, and Liverpool came through it. It wasn't pretty, but job done.
Yeah, it really was a gritty, horrible one to watch, wasn't it? The Stoke City reincarnate. What are your initial thoughts on that one, Theo? How important is that win for our season?
It could be a big win. When you have teams going for the title, you talk about wins of champions, the ones when you can get it over the line later on without playing well, when it's nitty and gritty, or those ones where it's drawing or even you're losing until the last minute and you manage to get a lay win. This one is the former. Liverpool basically just need to keep winning. Until they play these games in hand, they are going to be a long way behind Man City. There's no escaping that at the moment. They've just got to keep winning their games and make sure by the time they catch up to Man City in terms of their games played, they're as close to them as they can be. We know the two sides are going to play each other in April at the Etihad, and that could be a decisive game as long as Liverpool can keep winning, and that's what they've done today. They didn't create many chances. They struggled with the conditions. Burnley caused them a lot of problems. They were good offensively, Burnley, with they had a target man up front in the new lad for him, Holland, Weghorst, Jay Rodriguez was a threat, Maxwell Cornet was a threat with his pace, but without Alisson being inspirational in goal, they couldn't beat him, and Liverpool, it was a scrappy goal to get them the 3 points, but that's all they need. It doesn't have to be pretty when you're getting 3 points. It's the difference in the title race. Sure, Norwich could roll over and give City a 4-0 win yesterday, but Burnley are a very different prospect. They might be rooted to the bottom of the table, but they have got a lot of games in hand themselves. They don't score many and they don't concede many. I think they've only won one this season. They've drawn 11 games. The defence is one of the best. It's the seventh best in the league. Their attack is the 19th one. It's one of the worst. So 1-0 is probably a game you could scoreline predict heading into it. It was certainly the game you sort of expected. Liverpool thankfully came out on top.
Scrappy game, scrappy goal, but probably from one of our most informed goal scorers, unexpectedly so, Fabinho. That's his fifth goal in 7 games there. What on earth is happening with him?
It would just be something that Brazilian blood, isn't it? You think of all those great offensive players that country has produced over the decades. Fabinho's finally found some form in front of goal. Not that you expected him to, and it's quite nice that he's managed to do it today. Like last month, been fine. Didn't have Salah, didn't have Mane. Diaz hadn't signed yet. You needed someone to get the goals, and he was there stepping up. Now you've got them all back, and yet he's still scoring the goals. Long may this trait continue. There's proper poacher's finish from him as well. Like you watch the corner come into the box, Sadio Mane does well to flick it in, but he arrives late on the scene, almost from nowhere, and it's a really good flick from him. Instinct save from Pope, but he's the one who's on alert to get the rebound, and when you're that close and you've got a second chance to do, you're not going to miss. He didn't. Saw how much it meant to him, and he's celebrating. He's thinking he's getting quite a taste for this goal-scoring lark now. Might be wanting to get a few of the penalties and see if he can get a few. I did see one tweet there saying how mad is it going to be when the season ends. You're going to have Salah winning the Golden Boot, Jota second, and Fabinho third. In this form, it feels like it might well be that.
He looks so natural, doesn't he? Like the reactions there really are striker-esque. The rebound from his header really gives permission from him, and long may he keep his form up. But at the other end of the pitch, Burnley striker Weghorst, the big Dutchman, classic Burnley player, new signing. He did have a few chances there, didn't he? And I know we play this risky high line. Opposition teams do get plenty of chances against us, even though they're offside. It looks like they're getting chances, but he could have had a couple today, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could. There was a couple where he was he'd actually broken the line. He was onside, and he just put it wide. He had to rush it. Let's remember, though, he doesn't have the pace of, say, a Cornet or even a Rodriguez, so he knows he's got to shoot early, because the times when he didn't shoot early, Joel Matip would get back and steal off his toes, or Van Dijk would manage to steal it off his toes. Like you said, it was one of those when the flag's going up so late, it did feel like Burnley were a lot more dangerous than they actually were for what counted in the game. But that's what got their fans up, and it's what created the atmosphere, the fact that they were getting in behind the Liverpool defence. Maybe if those chances had fallen more to Cornet, they would have been able to take one, because he certainly had the pace to get in behind the defence and to get away from the centre-backs. But then when he had those chances, he wasn't timing his runs right. He was the one getting caught offside. There was one late in the second half where he goes around Alisson and puts the side net in. That's a bit of a let-off, but Alisson's done well, only for the flag to go up for offside anyway. Just one of those where if they'd timed their runs a bit better, or they had a bit more pace in that front line, maybe it wouldn't have been a Liverpool win today. They would have caused them problems. Better sides will manage to get that timing right and score goals against Liverpool. But then you'd hope that Liverpool don't have many off days like this. And when they do, at least they're going away with the 3 points.
It clearly works. We've got a clean sheet, a relatively solid defensive performance. But do you think in other games this could potentially be a detriment against us? With opposition crowds getting up for it, as you said, the Burnley fans, every chance they had, even though it was offside, it got them on their feet, didn't it? Do you reckon that could be dangerous further down the line?
Yes, it could, but then I think it's dangerous for every away side going to any game this season. Like fans, you've got to remember they've had so long when they weren't going to games, and now when they're enjoying watching football again. And it's this point for Burnley, especially, it's business end for them. It's make or break. They've got to get points. They've got to somehow find a way to win games if they're going to stay in the Premier League. So obviously they're going to be up for every single game to keep them over the line. But it isn't just Burnley. Like we saw at Everton yesterday, how much difference their crowd can make to turn a side who aren't in form and to get a result. And there's going to be so many teams in the Premier League like this at the moment. The games aren't won on paper. They're not going to be straightforward. It's not going to be a team's 20th. Liverpool are second. They're going to win 4-0. It's going to be nitty. It's going to be gritty. And it doesn't matter how you get the job done as long as you get the job done. And Liverpool got the experience to do it now. Won the Premier League by basically winning games like this every week. And while that feeling might have been lacking somewhat this year, when there have been games where they haven't been able to find late winners and drop points, they are starting to get that winning mentality back. They are feeling more of a complete outfit than they did earlier in the season. You just have to hope that they're not too far behind Man City in a title race and that they can catch up and make it count.
Well, it was a difficult day down the other end of the pitch for Liverpool as well, wasn't it? It's the first time we've seen that front three in what feels like an absolute age, doesn't it? With the classic Mane, Firmino, Salah. Mane obviously back in for the first time since AFCON. Salah again and Firmino in the starting lineup. Do you think that was the right three to choose today?
It's a hard one to call because Liverpool now have got that such depth there after signing Diaz. When you've got Elliott back from injury, you don't even need Minamino or Origi on the bench. That it can't really be this just a front three anymore. And Jota would have started today if he hadn't missed training yesterday. He had a dead leg. But it does feel like it's a change with the guard. Like this front three isn't the first choice front three anymore. We've got some big games coming up and there is going to be rotation there. Sadio Mane would have been on the bench if Jota hadn't got that dead leg. Mohamed Salah, I suppose he is the first choice, isn't he? He's the one forward you know is going to start every week. Maybe Diaz would have kept his place if it wasn't Burnley away of all places when he's just adapting to English football. So when you look at what's available, it is the best that they could do when you look at all those circumstances. But it's not the first choice one anymore, is it? Like Diogo Jota is, I think we can say now he is cemented his place in that first choice three. The fact that there was that debate of before Klopp came out and said he was injured that he might have just been rested for Inter Milan. He's got that place up higher in the pecking order, and Diaz will certainly have a chance of climbing the pecking order in the next few months. It's just whether Salah, Mane, and Firmino can hold on to that to make sure they're not just bench players. Like Salah's never going to be a bench player, but we know the other two got to do that bit more to convince that they are going to be these first choice players. Firmino's had a battle with Jota. Mane could now have one with Diaz, but that's why you want this strength and depth. It isn't just those three to get goals. They can have off days. You bring 2-3 players off the bench who can turn the game. You didn't need them to turn the game today. They've done enough, but you're not going to have games where they can just see it out like this without any chances. You are going to need that depth in to come off the bench. And fortunately, whether it's a Jota, a Diaz, Firmino, Mane, whatever, they've got some quality players who can score goals when they're starting or when they're on the bench.
I mean, you could tell Jota was carrying a knock, couldn't you? There's a little bit of a limp. I mean, he didn't look as dynamic as he normally does. And I think it was right to leave Luis Diaz out of this one because that would have been a hell of an introduction to away games in the Premier League for him. But for Bobby Firmino, do you reckon he's going to be concerned now? Because he had an opportunity today, didn't he, to try and almost recover his place. It's crazy we're saying this now, but Jota's been in such good form. I think Firmino does need to be fighting for his place here, doesn't he?
It's one where when Salah and Mane went away in January, we were always talking about it's a huge opportunity for the strikers left behind. And really, none of them are taking it. And it's for varying circumstances. Like Origi hasn't played, he's been injured. Minamino came into the month with an injury, then he was played out of position a little bit and just didn't look as natural on that right-hand side as, say, Oxlade-Chamberlain when he was given a chance. But you'd like to have seen a few more goals from Firmino. He's just not quite clicked for him for whatever reason. I suppose it's new teammates. It's not been his season. Like he's had a couple of hamstring injuries and kept him on the sidelines for a long time. It's the first time in his Liverpool career since Klopp's come in that he's not been guaranteed starter. So it is changing circumstances for him. He does have a point to prove. You'd like to see him turn it on at some point and find some form, but it's difficult for him to maybe find form if he's not sure of his place, if he's not starting games every week. It's one of those where you've got to perform to keep your place, but if you can't get that consistency, how are you supposed to perform? We are in a World Cup year now. He has got his Brazil place to play for. He hasn't played for Brazil or even been called up since, I think, Copa America final last year.
Yeah.
So he has got a lot to prove for club and country. That competition there, but we've seen in other places, like say the left back role, Simicas's presence has really kicked on for him and for Robertson. Hopefully these further attacking recruits can do the same for Firmino in attack. He is a very gifted player. We know his strengths, we know his weaknesses. He's just not a 25 goal a season striker, and he's getting, I suppose, picked on a little bit more for that when the player who can take his place, Diogo Jota, is looking like a 25 goal a season striker. But it's what do you want in the team to get the job done? Liverpool, if they've got the forwards scoring the goals on the wings, it doesn't matter so much through the central positions. Still got Jota scoring goals when he does start, and it seems now they've got Fabinho scoring goals, so they've got that cover for him. But yeah, he does have a point to prove at some point, and he hasn't managed to stake his claim as much as you'd have liked in the last few weeks.
It's a shame for Firmino because, for years it was always he makes Mane and Salah play better. We know that. We all know how amazing he is as a player. But when you've got Diogo Jota in this scoring form, you can't really drop him, can you, Theo? So maybe it could be the end of an era for the classic front three. But one thing it's definitely not the end of is the Premier League title race, as Liverpool have kept the pace up to date with the 1-0 win away at Burnley. Theo, thank you very much for joining me for the debrief. We'll be back again with the debrief, of course, in the week in the Champions League, the last 16 tie in Milan. So bring on your Internazionale. We'll see you then on Wednesday night for the debrief live. But until then, it's goodbye for now.